Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Natalie Owen, Director of Stakeholder Engagement here at Efficiency Canada. I'm located in Ottawa, which is also the unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation, but we are a national organization. So I'll get into today's session. So a reminder to everyone that our guest speakers will present for approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll open the floor to questions. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll wait until the end to raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can ask your questions directly. We'll have our presenters present and then we'll get to the questions even if you type questions in the Q&A box during the session. Without further ado, I am pleased to welcome our guests from the Community Association of the Danforth, Toronto, who are working on pocket change. Their goal is to have a pocket area they live in be a net zero or carbon neutral community. And I'm looking forward to learning how this community is creating change in their neighborhood through retrofitting their homes together. Please join me in welcoming David and Eve. Thanks for joining us.
All right. We have 420,000 single family homes in Toronto, and they're a big contributor to our greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for nearly a third of building emissions or 17% of the overall emissions from the city. Retrofitting private homes is a challenge because you have to deal with 421,000 owners, or twice that many if there's a spouse in the house. Although we're trying to identify common archetypes, each home has unique features, as do the owners. That explains why the city has been focused on apartment buildings and there's been limited resources to help with single family homes. If the city is targeting net zero by 2040, as they've just announced this week, then we'll have to retrofit nearly 500 homes per week. We think a community-based approach is the best way of engaging homeowners rather than a big corporate or public enterprise. Our community, The Pocket, has 3,500 people in 1,100 homes. We also house the Wandering Spirit First Nation School of Toronto, one of the city's largest mosques, some Toronto community housing, and we're home to many of the subway cars belonging to the Toronto Transit Commission. We named our community The Pocket because you can't drive through it. There's railway yards to the south and subway tracks on the east. That's helped to make it a great community of active, progressive residents, a mixed income community with people who can afford to retrofit their homes. Most of the homes themselves are 80 to 100 years old, a mix of brick and wood construction, and the vast majority are heated with natural gas, producing around 5 tons of greenhouse gas emissions each year. How can we persuade people to invest $50,000 to $100,000 in a deep retrofit? The benefits of such deep retrofits may be appealing, but this is still a huge investment, especially for older retired people and those on lower incomes. So we really have to be sensitive to the situation of each homeowner. That's why we've invested so much time and effort in community engagement and promoting case studies like the one shown here that illustrate how our neighbors have been able to retrofit their homes. This is a story of community development, community engagement, and having fun in the process. We're famous for our pocket parties that began on the street over 20 years ago, involving hundreds of people, and they've now moved up to our park. But we've also learned from the West Coast, the idea about holding, from Salt Spring Island, I think it was, that they started holding parties in people's homes, plied them with a little wine, and then put some pressure on them, and the next thing they know, they had them agreeing to a retrofit. Well, we started this, and it's been very successful. Pocket parties in people's homes. We had 7 of them, I think, before the pandemic hit us, slowed things down, but they've been proved very popular ways of doing community education. We've also organized eco-fun fairs, as you can see here, and we've had 2 of those before the pandemic hit. You can see the result. By early 2021, we have 130 members of the Pocket Change Committee, and we have just recently launched, this last month, our first cohort of 12 ChangeMakers. These are homeowners who are committed to doing deep retrofits. We hope to add more cohorts over the coming months. We've already have in this community 4 deep retrofits that have been undertaken and completed, I might say. And the next slide talks about the ChangeMakers, these people, these ChangeMakers. What makes them unique? Well, these people that are ready to stick their necks out and begin a home retrofit are obviously climate conscious, socially concerned citizens, and able to make the investment required. As I say, somewhere between, we don't know exactly right now, 50 to 100,000, and how much money is coming to support us is an open question right now. Eve, why don't you take it from here?
So that leaves us with a challenge. Now we have 12 eager change makers who've been looking forward to moving ahead with their home retrofits. And that's when the real challenges begin. And so we've launched a new phase of the project in order to help those 12 people to successfully complete their home retrofits. We're calling it the Community Home Retrofit Project. And the purpose is to help accelerate the rate of retrofits that will result in GHG reductions. And Toronto has just released a draft Transform TO Net Zero strategy. It's going to committee and council for approval in the next weeks. And it includes a specific goal of reducing GHG emissions from existing buildings by 50% from 2008 levels by 2030. So that gives the framework of an objective for us. So what does it take to convert these motivation that these 12 changemakers have in order to actual retrofits? We believe that they need coaching. It's a very technical and very complex process. We need to find suppliers that are willing and able to meet their needs. And of course, it's not an inexpensive undertaking. But we are already seeing some results in the pocket with retrofits getting started. So I'm going to talk about each one of those things. The first thing is coaching, and coaching is largely the missing link in this whole process when we're looking at single family homes. Many people get their energy audit completed and then they throw up their hands and say, what next? And it's a complex technical project. It's a complex organizational project. There's a lot of impacts on their home, decisions to be made about what compromises they will make in their home design. They have a brick house. Are they prepared to wrap it and change the character, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a need to help work through this process with someone that has both technical expertise and is familiar with the process and the experiences that other homeowners may. So as we see this retrofit coordination service, it has to include both project management and building science expertise in order to help guide the technical decisions. It will help the homeowner to take the energy audit that was completed and turn it into a practical retrofit roadmap. And that needs to reflect the home. It needs to reflect the situation of the homeowner, their finances, they're willing to take risk and deal with change. And it needs to take into account so the energy assessment, technical considerations, and financial considerations. And the next hurdle homeowners face is finding qualified contractors and arranging the contract. So the retrofit coordination service will help to guide people to qualified contractors and review the contracts with them, define the work that needs to be done, et cetera. Assist with accessing financing and incentives. There are programs out there, but they're not all that easy to access. There's questions about what is the optimal way of applying them. And then keep an eye on the project as it proceeds, make sure the quality of work is what it needs to be. And finally, look at the GHG emission reductions that were achieved based on before and after utility data in order to make sure that the project is delivering what's needed. Almost all the research that's been done on attitudes of homeowners identifies the same obstacles that homeowners see in undertaking a retrofit. And the challenge is to reduce those obstacles so that the homeowners can proceed. Many people find that it's too costly versus the value of what they see they're getting. Dealing with contractors, lack of trust. Obviously, contractors have other motivations when they're talking to the homeowners, and the homeowners want an impartial assessment of what's needed. Homeowners see the project rightly as being very complicated. Homeowners find that it's disruptive. They have too much stuff. They're too busy. They have kids that they have to take care of, etc. And some people just aren't staying in their homes for very long, and it doesn't seem to be worth proceeding. So the retrofit coordination service can help with this. It can help deal with the cost, finding the best way of investing money. It can help with, as an intermediary with contractors, to help with planning, to reduce the complication and take some of the burden off the homeowners. The second factor in the equation is suppliers, contractors, and materials. And I think probably most of you are aware of what a challenge this is now and is going to continue to be. Even for the current demand for renovations, there aren't enough contractors out there to do the work. And this is a sector that has little appeal to contractors. The financial returns are not as much as they are in other sectors. The work needs to be very high quality with a lot of attention to detail. The clients have a lot of unanswered questions, and they need to spend a lot of time getting up to speed. And so contractors are really not eager to undertake this work. And then the last thing is that there's a limited supply of materials, particularly insulation with low embodied carbon, and HVAC components, etc. So what the retrofit coordination service can do is it can package projects. It can help to define the projects so that the contractors don't have to go through that phase. It can get them to the point where their homeowners are ready to go so that the contractors don't have to do a lot of upfront business development. And it can aggregate projects both for the purchase of supplies and for working with contractors in order to get cost savings and increase the buying power. So the third thing is funding. And yes, there are more programs out there now than there were even a year ago. There's the Greener Homes program, for example, but these are still a challenge for many homeowners to access. The whole administration, the application process, getting the energy audit done, etc., is a little bit daunting for many people. What we're finding is that the requirements for eligibility for rebates are limited to certain products and components and don't necessarily cover some of the most practical ways of proceeding. The amount of money you get is not huge in relation to the expenditure in a lot of areas, but it may distort the decisions if decisions are made in order to try and take advantage of rebates. And in the end, the owner needs to have the cash to pay up front and then get the collect on the rebate later. Financing is increasingly available. The municipal LIC programs and the future CMHC program, but in the end, the owner still pays for those. And when people have limited resources and other pressures in their lives, this isn't necessarily a priority for them. So what the retrofit coordination service can do is it can look at the roadmap and make sure that the plan is to invest the money where the greatest value comes, and also help homeowners to access the funding and advise them where they're best to apply it. So the prototype retrofit coordination service does a number of things, not just for the homeowner, but for the progress of this whole sector. First of all, it does remove the obstacles for the homeowners as I've described. It ensures that the retrofits are effective and have good value. It achieves cost savings and efficient installation. It increases contractor interest by aggregating. It will help to build a roster of committed and trusted contractors, monitors the best practice in the industry and the new research so that this can be adopted. And finally, it does the performance evaluation at the end of the projects in order to measure and track the outcomes and the total GHG reduction impact. So this is what it looks like as we're applying it here in the Pocket. We've got the Pocket Community Association and the Pocket Change Committee that David mentioned, which has an engagement strategy, and the blue arrows are the outreach and the and communications with the homeowners in the pocket. And some of them with green arrows have come back and said, yes, we'd like to go ahead. So those people then are involved with a retrofit coordination service, which is at the moment, it's a small energy advisory service that we're working with closely, and they are helping to provide the advice to get the ChangeMakers on the way. This is a model that we think is very scalable. It could be the retrofit coordination service would benefit from increased volume. It makes it more attractive to the suppliers. It allows it to keep up to date with the state of the art and incorporate those things in the best practice, while the neighborhood community associations, and it could be other types of communities. It could be faith communities. It could be other clubs that have good relationships with their members and can communicate with them and help motivate them to be involved. So it's a complementary partnership between the community-based organizations and the more technical expertise of the retrofit coordination service. So skeptics have said, well, there aren't enough people out there who really want to go ahead and do this. What we're finding is that there is indeed a very active demand for deep retrofits among climate conscious homeowners who have the means to pay for them. And again, they may get their energy audit, and even people that are otherwise sort of very technically capable find it overwhelming, the decisions that need to be made, sequencing of projects, even heat pumps, the variety of different installations can be quite daunting. So there is a demand for support among them. And by word of mouth, we have people coming to us looking for this type of service. As more projects are completed, we believe that will sort of socialize the idea of deep retrofits. It will demonstrate to people the feasibility and the comfort that comes with them, as well as the GHG reductions. And so there will be an increase in the market as people move beyond the most committed climate conscious homeowners. As carbon prices go up, the economics is going to change. There are increasing government requirements on energy performance for buildings and so forth, and those will all provide more incentives for people to undertake deep retrofits. But the bottom line is that in the absence of where there aren't significant subsidies, there are many people that are not in a position to pay for retrofits, and that is going to be a barrier to many, many homeowners. So the challenges that we see are inadequate funding for the homeowners, as I have mentioned a couple of times. Second thing is that the retrofit coordination service is not really recognized as a part of this whole equation. There is not funding. There's funding for the audits. There's funding for the services. There's no funding for the retrofit coordination service. And we believe that that is really a showstopper for many people. And the third thing, of course, is the lack of qualified contractors and materials to meet what we expect is going to be a rapidly growing demand. So where are we right now? We have organized a retrofit coordination service. We are very lucky to have in the neighborhood an architect who has a long history of working on passive house design and is a building science specialist. And he is working with this independent energy advisor that I mentioned. The homeowners pay $750 for the service, and that includes the roadmap and financing advice and the performance assessment. And if they want assistance with the contracts and the oversight of the work, then that becomes an hourly addition, because the variety of projects will result in different amounts of labor needed. We have our cohort of 12 ChangeMakers. They meet monthly. They're lively meetings. They share their questions. They share their experience. The energy advisor is there to answer questions. And in general, it's proven to be a really positive and collegial meeting. Two of the ChangeMakers are coordinators, and they reach out regularly to the others. They stay in touch with the group. They track progress. They flag issues. We've had issues related to getting energy audits done. There's some specific sort of bureaucratic obstacles to be overcome, and these people can help us to find the problems quickly and deal with them to keep the project on the road. The energy assessments of the 12 ChangeMakers are almost complete. We've got current utility data as a baseline for each of them, and the retrofit roadmaps are being prepared. And while this is going on, we're hearing from more people that they want to be involved in the project, and we're starting to accumulate names for the next cohort. So as we move ahead in the longer term, we will continue to deliver the retrofit coordination services to the first cohorts and get them through their projects. We will be expanding the engagement strategy in order to strengthen the flow of new projects to the process, and eventually start a new cohort of homeowners. This is all within the pocket. But we see beyond the pocket. We are working with, staying in touch closely with other neighborhoods. Many of them have community associations that are also interested in this, doing bulk purchasing and outreach to their participants. And we believe that this may be a useful service for them as well. And that involves expanding the capacity of the retrofit coordination service, potentially setting it up as an independent organization of its own. As we get more experience, it's going to be very important to build partnerships with a pool of qualified contractors, be communicating with them about the quality and the methods that are being used, and try and make it an attractive proposition for them to be involved with this. And finally, we need to keep speaking up for the funding that it's going to take to keep moving this ahead. And on the right, you see the designs for our lawn signs that we're using to highlight the progress in the neighborhood, that homeowners can put these lawn signs so that everybody can see that, yes, it is possible to do this, and we are moving ahead. Thank you very much. That's the presentation, and happy to take questions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Eve and David. I love the lawn signs. They're fantastic. So I definitely agree with Christina on the chat there. And another comment that I loved was Patrick's. He said that he loved the community-driven initiatives, and that's exactly why we have you here today, to inspire others and just reach out to all communities across Canada and get everyone involved, for sure. We'll now open the floor to questions. Again, there are two ways. You can raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you can ask your question in the Q&A box. And I see there is a number of active questions that were going on, flurry there throughout your presentation. So I'm sure everyone's waiting for me to get to them. So I'm going to ask Judith first, have you kind of touched on it a little bit, but have you been able to reduce the cost for each homeowner by doing bulk purchases of material or collectively hiring contractors?
That's certainly what we expect to do. We want to do it. There are also the City of Toronto, for example, is looking at doing bulk purchases, and we're monitoring very much what other people are doing as well, but we haven't quite got there yet. So we'll come back and tell you about that later.
Perfect. I would say any contractor who's a smart contractor would want in on that with a discount for sure. So I'm expecting the answer to be yes, but we'll find out. A question here from Joshua is, if you're looking at the community scale, have you considered district energy systems?
Yes, the issue has been raised. We are currently enjoying a sustainable neighborhood action plan, thanks to the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And in the process of that, they've asked different government city agencies to investigate how they might contribute to this process. In this case, the Toronto Transit Commission are exploring the capacity not only of putting a green roof over their buildings, putting solar over their yard, but also creating a district energy system, not only for the TTC yards itself, but sharing some of the heat with neighboring homes here in the pocket. So we've been investigating the potential, the possibility of this. It's provoked a heated debate, if I can say that, here in Toronto, about the feasibility of district energy systems in this environment. I could go on, but I think I've answered the question.
No, that is fine to go on for sure. We'll get to a few other questions here. There's one I see from Brendan. Have you been able to successfully communicate and/or demonstrate comfort benefits and internal environmental quality benefits for retrofits? For instance, home visits and environmental quality monitoring.
I think that's one of the major elements of the communications and outreach program, is to take the homes where the work has already been done and provide the open houses that David was mentioning earlier. And one of the benefits that I think even the homeowners did not expect was the amount of improved comfort, the quietness of the homes after this has been done, the uniform temperature inside. So the best way of doing that is by show and tell.
Definitely. There's a question here actually is from David, from David to David or Eve. How do we become, or how does one become an approved contractor?
That's a good question. So both the energy advisors and the architect have a history of working in this field, and they are familiar with some contractors that they have confidence in. And so there's enough there that we can offer the homeowners a choice, and that they can feel that they're not being directed to a particular contractor. But as the volume increases, then this is, we're going to have to increase the capacity as well. We have started reaching out to industry associations. We're looking at ways of recruiting contractors that are interested in really joining this as a mission, because it needs to be people that are really committed to the objective. And that's something that we'll be building in the next months.
That's great. And just speaking of associations, have you reached out to the Canadian Association of Consulting Energy Advisors, or CASIA? Or if you're familiar with them, or if not,
I can't say that for sure. I can't say that for sure, but that is an excellent suggestion. It's possible that Paul is familiar with them.
Happy to make a connection there. It was actually somebody else's question though, but I can make the connection there. We do have a question
that
here.
Would be super.
Perfect. From Joshua is, you did discuss this a little bit. Have you run into any supply chain issues? My understanding is that low carbon insulation materials, for example, wood fiber panels, are hard to come by at the moment with no North American manufacturers.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. But we haven't got there yet. So we don't know quite what effect that's going to have, or how we're going to manage to overcome that.
Ask that in a few months, couple months.
Definitely. I would also say that it's a common question that we get on our common situation we get on discovery sessions. And so I always say to any manufacturers that are listening, there are great opportunities here for you. You have over 100 people that are watching this that would love to reach out to you. So I would encourage the Canadian manufacturers to start manufacturing. A question here from, sorry, that's jumping around here on me. Another one from Brendan. Have you attempted to engage and or create an organization, for an example, like a co-op, that would use an energy service model that would fund and take on the risk of the retrofits and make money back via the energy performance, with homeowners simply paying a regular fee? David, I see you nodding your head there.
I've seen Brendan pose this question in another forum. We have not as yet. It's an interesting concept that we can explore. It's just a new idea. Eve?
One of our questions is, it is our objective to create an organization in the longer term to do this, that's capable of scaling up to deal with the demand across the city. But the whole question of how it's financed is still up in the air. And many of the things that are done as part of a deep retrofit, the payback is so long that using a conventional financing method for them is difficult, right? We're also looking at the possible value that this service has for the contractors that are partners, and working with them in a way to team up. So we're not quite sure how that will take shape. There are a couple of different routes it could take, but it'd be great to talk with you more, Brendan, about this idea and see where it might go.
Definitely. I have a question here from Alex, and it might be a little out of scope, but I'm going to ask it because if you don't have an answer, I have an answer. So, given the marginalized groups, so women and new Canadians, etc., have been significantly impacted by the pandemic and have seen job/income loss, how do you view this opportunity to tap into the labor pool and encourage these various groups to get into the retrofit contracting business?
One of the very first meetings we had here 5-6 years ago was with a group called Building Up, and they are set up to help train youth who come from marginalized backgrounds. And we're looking forward to working with them on this as one of the contractors on this job. You know, there's no reason why these young people can't be trained to do air sealing and so forth. So that's one example concretely that we're exploring.
And then I will say that Efficiency Canada is also working on reaching these groups, as well as every single Canadian that is interested in working in energy efficiency. We are creating a career hub, which is going to be launching soft launch at the end of this month, early December, and then a full launch in the spring/winter time. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be, I'm really excited for it. You might have seen some posts on our social media about that. A question here from David is, have you considered having local people get the energy audit training, as they would be able to engage their own neighbors?
Oh, that's a very interesting idea. Very cool idea.
Go ahead, Eve. We haven't thought of this.
We haven't thought of it, but it's a great idea. I mean, this is a volunteer run organization. We're reaching out to recruit people for all sorts of things, doing our website, doing a survey. So we don't have an overabundance of people who are prepared to come forward with this stuff. And getting quality energy audits has proven to be one of the initial hurdles. The Energies advisors have had to revisit a lot of the content. And so we're definitely going to have to find a small number of energy auditors who are sort of our intake pool. And we can also get them to collect some additional information that we need for design purposes as well. So that's a very, very interesting idea to do that.
I might mention that we do punch way above our weight in terms of having climate environment specialists in this community. And that's part of, I suppose, why we've been able to make such progress. But we've got 3 people currently involved in the Master's Environmental Studies program at York. We've got another one who's just finished his PhD from U of T in Environmental Studies, and another one's beginning her PhD at York in Environmental Studies. So we're doing okay in that regard.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some parents in the community that have university or high school, college students, probably maybe still living at home, that they would love to push them in the direction of becoming an energy advisor. So to find one,
very cool idea.
Yeah, to find one, you can check out Natural Resources Canada's website. They have the full list there, as well as various training options. And I know some of our own allies are offering discounts on training for the exam that you have to pass to become an energy advisor. So that's, I would encourage you to check that out. It's also under the education tab on our website. You can find all the training for energy listed that we could find. It's all up there. We started that at the beginning of the pandemic, just to say, here's some things you can do while at home. I have a question here from Alex. Again, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer it, but we'll try. So in addition to DHC, have you considered shallow retrofits and the usage of solar PVs and CC-ASHP or solid biofuels like wood pellet stoves or boilers, adds Terrence?
We haven't. But Eve, you have more to say?
Well, there has been a good deal of discussion about how deep the retrofit needs to be in order to make fuel switching viable. And so this is an ongoing discussion we're having as well. We haven't looked at what CC, the fuel pellet, the solid fuels at all.
That's fine. I have no idea what that is, to be honest. Part of the reason why I do discovery sessions, so I can learn too. A question, actually, great question from Danielle is, do you have a web page that people can, or Facebook group or anything that people can check out?
Yes, where our website is, we just got some new engagement software for a new website. So we're just developing our website, redeveloping it, expanding it, and it's up now, but I'm not going to direct people there yet. Give us another few weeks, okay? And we first-rate website.
Well, when you send it, when you do have it up, send it to me and I'll add it to the recording page on our website so people
Great.
can link to it there, and we'll share it on social media as well.
David, I would just
It is a priority for us.
night here in my home. We're developing it actively. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just so David can stop giving out his personal cell number for sure.
Our community.
CCAS
Oh,
HP is cold climate air source heat pump. So I do know what those are. Never seen their acronym before. So there you
Okay.
go.
so cold climate air, can I say that cold climate air source heat pumps are our objective is to do the fuel switching and get onto cold climate, get people right off gas. That's really where we're headed.
There, perfect. Well said, Eve. So just on that, I have one last question for you. So if you can be a little succinct, what could you share your one last message with everyone here today that you hope people took away from your presentation? Like if they had one message, what would that be? And David, I'm going to go to you first.
Well, I think it would be, hey, this is possible. This is doable. You can engage people and have fun in the process. And I encourage other communities across the country to consider following in our footsteps, and I'd be eager to help share what we've done with them. Yeah.
Awesome. And Eve?
I would agree. It's not, there's no technical obstacle to this. It's getting the pieces together and the right people and getting access to some support, and people are doing it.
Definitely. Well said, Eve. So thank you again for joining us today and for the great story and inspiring story and great conversation. Next week, we're actually going to have our friends from Clear Results join us to discuss a topic that surprisingly we actually have never touched on during our discovery sessions yet, and that is addressing the need for charging infrastructure to enable the adoption of efficient electric vehicles. So we've actually never discussed EVs, even though it is part of our scorecard. So I'm looking forward to getting the details on this one next week, as well as I am every week. So have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Thank you again, David and Eve, and I'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you for the opportunity.